Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Future Current. I'm your host, Sean Swentek. Today, I'm speaking with Yaniv Kalish, founder and CEO at SolarKal. Yaniv, thanks for joining me today.
Nice seeing you again, Sean.
Yeah, we had a chance to catch up at RE Plus a couple of months ago, and it was really nice to get some time with you in person. Love what you're doing at SolarKal. Excited to have you on the show. Speaking of, you've facilitated, I believe, over 500 million in solar transactions. Pretty incredible number. What do you see as the biggest misconception for either commercial real estate owners or just general like corporate owners of real estate or owner operators when it comes to like the decision of whether or not to add solar to their business or their facility?
Yeah, definitely $500 million of transactions. It's a lot of transactions, as you can imagine, over the last 10 years. And things have definitely evolved over time. I would say the two biggest categories, I would say, of misconception. One is that it's expensive, and the other one that it's complicated. Both have some merit into them. I'll start with the expensive side. So while solar in the US is much more expensive than most places around the world, it's mostly because of soft costs. Some are due to tariffs, put it aside, but the soft cost is very complicated. We do automated RFPs or procurement for our clients all the time. And we might see like 100% difference between lowest and highest bids. Not too much transparency on that side, which means if you're a real estate owner, you might pay 2x the real price. The expensiveness is not necessarily because the technology is expensive, because just it's not a very transparent market. So you might deliberately pay 2x for the same solution that your neighbor did. So this is kind of one thing that I would say. On the complicated side, I would say it's somewhat complicated. It might take 2 years to run a process with many ups and downs along the way, and the permits and regulatory risk and so forth. But I think developing real estate is much more complicated. That's what my client would tell me. So they're not afraid of complication. I think what makes it harder for them is know their core business.
Yep.
So when they're going to solar, think it's going to be easy, just another add-on, and they realize it has some complications. So, which a lot of them choosing to use owners reps, but the ones who also don't, it's going to be a lot of ups and downs, as you would imagine with any infrastructure project.
Yeah, you know what's interesting that you just made me think of there. It's so crucial to have a talented and like knowledgeable agency acting as an owner rep like yours for the actual process of going solar. But then once the solar is installed, the long-term operations and managing that is so different from their other facilities management, right? So I don't know if you have thoughts on like how difficult that is to take on and the solutions around that.
Yeah, I would say there's a big learning curve like anything new. And obviously, the real estate folks are very smart and sophisticated. I would say the good thing for having a good operating asset is to have a good installer to do so.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them rush into the cheapest one, or they don't check the equipment because they don't know how to. There's not a difference between panel X and Y or the inverter, what to look for. I think that the good thing is to don't rush into the kind of first company who knocks on your door, do your diligence, and then make sure you do the right installation. And if you do a good job, yeah, afterwards, great solution. I admire what Gideon is doing as well. You have the scale to do so. So I think once it's also a question of scale. If you have a lot of scale, you can kind of in-house trying to figure things out. Monitoring and crews, I think many don't have it. And it's good to use platform like Omni. I think you guys what are doing is great.
Yep. You've been in this space for quite a while now. What's like the most dramatic shift you've seen for commercial real estate and corporate entities when it comes to their approach to solar over the past few years?
Again, you're right. We walked dozens of companies through that kind of solar journey, I would call it. There is some common themes, but it really depends on the stage. So
Yep.
stage one for everyone usually starts with a few pilots. They want to get comfortable with the technology because, again, for them, it's all very, very new. Then it's usually like a larger deployment, and then they go more to the weeds, and then, okay, they do like a roof lease. Let's now try to own it ourselves, and they're trying to make more complicated ITC structures. So I think it's very different to where you are in the stage. Some are very advanced, like the Prologis of the world, which have done solar since 2008, 2009. They have a full-blown team. They are very sophisticated. It's in their leases already that they have solar as part of it. Well, some of the newcomers are only doing, the last 2 years. They're mostly going to opt into some kind of a roof lease product because they just want to get comfortable with technology. But if they go deeper into it, they're like, oh, how much is the other companies making? I want to make that too. So we're going to advise them on ownership and tax flip structures. And it really depends on kind of where you are on the journey.
Have you seen any trends or any changes lately in ownership structure? Obviously, interest rates have been a little higher for the last couple of years. Are people still primarily leasing, or are you seeing a renewed interest in like owning the system and getting the tax benefits themselves?
I want to say for large deployment, we'll see mostly roof leasing because it's an NOI boost for a lot of them. Usually the and small owners of private equity that have dedicated funds, we look have the more the bandwidth to figure out how to do ownership.
Yep.
I want to say moving forward, I think with the ITC phasing out, again, it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise. You're going to see much simpler ways to own. And I think a lot of the owners will opt into it. And we're doing already a bunch of projects with our clients about ownership and how will it look like. Energy rates are going up, so it becomes a bit of a prop for real estate owners to own those solar assets.
Yeah, they can lock in a consistent cost of energy for a long period of time and protect themselves from the rate increases. Good call. So you mentioned the idea of sort of starting out testing, but when a REIT or a large asset manager comes to you, what are those barriers they're trying to overcome from the small start to like scaling renewables across their portfolio?
So I want to say again, it varies like what stage you are. Some, you just want to know the kind of potential, just figure out what to do. So I have a large portfolio, 50 states. Which states make sense, don't make sense? What's the barriers? What's the red tape? How do you even start? I think that's kind of like barrier number one that people come across. And I think just a simple desktop analysis is kind of challenging because it doesn't take into account. It's like if you want to develop real estate, it's like me telling you, I have this software that tells you exactly what's the best location for real estate. So it does require some more, development knowledge and experience to know what to do. I think once you choose the right sites, I think getting multiple bids and having that same as me, have the skill on operations, it's good to have multiple bids from the proper vendors. And I think if you do those two kind of correctly, it kind of ease up the challenge of scaling up on your portfolio. Yeah, you want to start small to get comfortable with technology. Some companies have large, aggressive ESG targets, so they want to go all in day one. We always kind of warn them that even if you have 1,000 buildings, you're not going to have 1,000 solar assets within a year. There's a lot of red tape, and
Yep.
every state is different. So figure out how to do it. I think it's really, really crucial. And there is a learning curve. And once you get there, I think it's solar can be very, very easy.
You mentioned kind of this marketplace type model. Maybe you can expand on that in general and what SolarKal offers, because I think there might be some asset managers who have maybe run the numbers on a single site, didn't look good. They might not realize the expertise you're able to bring from like a state to state perspective around policy and energy rates and all these things that impact why one site might be better than another. So how does that work in your marketplace model, and how does that benefit the consumer?
So on the analysis part, as you mentioned, this asset manager, knowing how to even run the numbers and what comps, it's really challenging because you might have two companies knocking on your door, giving you some numbers. And what does that mean? I think once you have kind of a marketplace like us, to your point, $500 million of transactions. We have over $5 billion of bids on our platform.
Wow.
We have a lot of data points to tell them very quickly what would be the economics in different versions. If you want to own it, here are prices that your neighbor paid yesterday. If you want to do a roof lease, here are the numbers. We know which states make sense, don't make sense. So what might take an asset owner 6 months to figure out to try an hour, we have all the data points, just really, really quickly know from our experience what kind of makes sense. And I think the site selection is very, very crucial because if you chase the wrong properties to do solar, you will figure out at some point during the development that it doesn't work because it's too high, the roof, the interconnection queue, whatever the reason is, you want to figure out all this stuff very early to prevent the frustration because you also promised your boss that you're going to have solar in 6 months, but then nothing happened. So setting expectations is also key. And then on the other side, once you identify the right sites, getting the right bid. So if you want to do a roof lease in South Jersey, or if you want to own or an EPC in California, it's a different set of vendors who might be relevant for that. So knowing which vendors to go after, which one is good, which one is bad. Unfortunately, our industry has a lot of over-promising and under-delivering, and I think it's coming a lot from the desperate and high customer acquisition cost.
Yep.
So I think just being able to get the right company in the right region, it's within their comfort zone. If you've done a bunch of EPC work in California, you're going to be great at it. You're not going to be great in a roof lease in Connecticut.
Yeah.
You're going to bid for it because why not? But there is local great companies in Connecticut is going to beat you out. So knowing which company specializes in what is the big value a marketplace can bring in.
I love that. And we're a few years out now from when the IRA passed, and obviously you've been working across those years with things like transferability and other things that came out of the IRA. What were like the big changes that you saw that reshaped commercial solar deals? And then what impact do you think the OBBBA will have and sort of turning back on some of those things? And just what do you see for the future of how tax credits are going to impact this market?
So definitely there was a clear winner of the BBB, which is storage.
Yep.
And even though I'm a solar person, I think if I were to design the grid, it's the right thing to do. Again, I'd rather give incentive for all energy. Energy is a subsidized industry because everybody benefit from it. So I think it's okay. But storage, I mean, at some places in the US, the grid is utilized maybe half of the time.
Yep.
I need storage to take the same assets and utilize them better.
Mm-hmm.
I think storage would be a big component moving forward in the energy transition. You still have to create more generating assets, and solar is the cheapest one. This is why I think solar plus storage is kind of the winning kind of combo to create cheap electrons and to make them available 24/7 and reliable and local, everything you need from an energy generation. And that's what I think the BBB will create that movement towards that. The transition in between, because the ITC is running out, numbers will be lower, but energy rates are going through the roof. 30-40% in the last 4 years, which is crazy. And I think it's not stopping. If you're seeing kind of the last auctions for capacity, it's going to go higher and higher.
Yep.
So that will offset some of this transition that will happen when the ITC phases out. And states are kind of stepping in. So I think we're going to see this kind of transition phase when the market will have to find itself again in terms of prices. But when you come out of it with a no tax credit market, a much simpler market, I think that would be great for the industry as a whole. Most countries in the world don't have tax credits. And in the long term, I think it creates a much more stable and transparent market.
100% agree. Yaniv, you recently worked with Jigar Shah, one of the heavyweights in our industry, on an article. And I think the headline was Why CRE Must Lead the Solar Transition. Kind of provocative. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you see there?
Yeah, Jigar is phenomenal to work with. I mean, on top of his access and being on the Mount Rushmore of solar and we have many, many things, he's a very, very smart, very motivated person and is working with purpose all the time, which I really, really admire. And it's great to kind of to partner with him on kind of our next steps of our growth. Specifically to kind of the question, I think, kind of going back to deploying as many solar panels with storage to kind of create lower energy cost. I think right now in the US, about 5% of rooftops have solar. Some countries have deep in the double digits. That's a win-win situation. I think if you are able to, there's a lot of people who rightfully so resist solar on their land, for visuals, could use it for something else, farmland. So there is a debate on usage of land, but the rooftops are sitting there.
Yeah.
Not using them. Not to mention for the real estate owner, you can get an NOI. So the real estate owner get a higher property value. The local community get more reliable energy. It's cheaper energy and you get place to do so. So it's a really win-win-win for everyone, which I think and one of the barriers to get there is literally lack of education, high customer acquisition cost, complicated market dynamics. But in reality, I don't see why any new roof wouldn't have solar on it and just create energy locally.
Every time I fly and I see these like huge flat commercial roofs, I go, man, you could have. Someone's probably already invented this, but wouldn't it be great if you could just snap a photo with your phone out the window and it would tell you what the address of that property was, and if you were in solar sales, you could just go and be like, "Hey, I was flying over your building, and you really need solar on this thing."
So doing solar sales for a very long time, people do it with satellite images and so forth. Being in the weeds for the last 17 years, trying to convert that owner to a solar generator, there's a lot of obstacles to get there, which is why only a small portion have it. All are solvable. I'm very optimistic about how in the future, every time you'll fly in, there are going to be more solar panels versus less. So eventually we'll get there.
I mean, we're getting to the point where the economics is hard to argue against. I mean, when the energy rates are going up and solar hardware costs are coming down, the payback period just keeps shrinking. So,
yeah, no, the paybacks on solar are, as an investor, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I totally agree. So when it comes to great segue into the next question, when it comes to making these decisions, what is the biggest mistake you're seeing commercial real estate companies make when evaluating a solar project and whether or not to pull the trigger?
I want to say many real estate owners are more reactive versus proactive. So what does that mean? That means that they'll have a solar person knock on the door and offer them something. Number, or roof lease or do so or whatever. If you're a smart owners, which most of them are, they might do their own analysis and try to get a few more bits. The more sophisticated might even try to create, I've seen like they do their own RFPs. They have an Excel because three companies told them something and try to create their own RFP. Well, the problem is that the entire process is very reactive. They keep learning new information every step of the way. So they think and they try to adopt. So the entire process is more like reactive all the time versus like a top-down approach, which is, if you hire a company like us, we've done those dozens of times, looking at large portfolios, top-down. What kind of makes sense? Here's all the data about pricing. Here's what you should ask or haven't asked. Here's the mistakes that everyone else have done. So you kind of take a top-down approach of like choosing the sites, doing an RFP, and kind of controlling the process versus always being reactive. And I think being reactive creates just not the best outcome. Again, the second time you might do better, or third time you might do even better. But if you partner with someone who's done it dozens of times and have a full team of solo developers who did it over and over and over, I think it creates also a much better process for the solar vendors, because solar vendors, when they see an RFP or a real estate client trying to go to market and ask for bids, they put a 5% conversion rate on it in their head from the past experience, because they know the guy doesn't know, the girl doesn't know what exactly they're doing. They're going to figure it out in 2 years. So because of that, they're going to inflate the price to cover for the other ones that they didn't get. When you have a marketplace, we have about 80% conversion rates on our RFP. So all of our RFPs, because we built the right process and contracts and things in place, are being built. So when a vendor sees our RFPs, the solar companies, they know they might not win this one, but it's going to get built. So they're much more taking it seriously. They're lowering the cost. So once you have like the proper marketplace, it just creates a win-win-win for everyone again.
Wow. What is one renewable energy strategy that you see that consistently surprises these property owners with the ROI potential?
I think it's now kind of a known secret, but I think a lot of property owners really like roof leases. It's, lease is a language that they understand. I mean, the real estate companies, what they do, they take square footage, lease it, and try to make money.
Yep.
So we tell them, hey, there is another space that you haven't leased, because there's something we used before. So, okay, my property is 100% occupied. And we tell them, no, you have another space, another tenant you're missing out, because you can lease your roof too. So once you're kind of speaking in their language, they understand a little bit better. For the solar folks that probably listen or see this as well, roof lease is kind of a common thing, but for real estate companies, some of them it's a new thing. They think it's going to cost me money. It's complicated. Some of our clients are making 7 figures of roof leases. It's part of the NOI. They cap rate it. We are escorting a lot of transactions of buying and selling of real estate, and we do an analysis on the value of the solar to just see how that actually they're getting more money for the solar on the roof. But again, it's part of the education and the learning that you're seeing in the industry right now, and it's a great product.
Yeah, and I love that the analogy to speaking in their language with the lease, and it's crazy to think. I mean, it's literally a revenue generator for some of these folks. So again, the reason it's got to be hard to say no at some point to this. Talking about getting these systems paid for, like we mentioned earlier, what is an innovative financing structure you're seeing? And maybe you're going to go back to the roof lease, but maybe you have something else to share that's making solar more accessible for these CRE portfolios.
Look, I want to say solar, generally speaking, as a product, is a very similar financing structure as real estate. So going back to kind of the real estate analogy, both are kind of infrastructure project that you put in and get cash flows afterwards. If anything, I would say real estate is much harder to, much more complicated structures, I want to say. But solar is the same thing. You have to put a little bit of equity upfront to kind of do the analysis, feasibility, and do some permits. Once you get that, you get the construction loan to build the solar. And once the system is energized, you replace the construction loan with a permanent debt, which is very, very, very similar to how you do real estate. What's different is, again, in solar, typically once the energy is energized, when the system is energized, you're getting 100% of your money out, which is just amazing. So but the complicated aspect of solar is the tax credit. It makes it more economical, but again, the financing then it becomes that you don't have it in real estate.
Yeah,
You have to figure it out. I think some of the innovation I've seen around it, just again to educate the real estate owners around how to do so, and the one who don't want to, again, roof lease is always available for them. They don't have to understand anything. It's literally they're signing a lease to lease their roof to someone else. That's it. That's the only contract they sign.
brilliant. Now, Yaniv, ESG has been taking a hit industry wide right now, but it's still an important function that a lot of folks have to pay close attention to. How do you help asset managers integrate solar energy strategy into their broader ESG goals?
Yeah. I want to say when you work with our clients, you have a lot of different stakeholders. involved in that process. And the asset managers, care about the NOI, and you have the ESG champion who care about their GRESB reporting or their internal goals. You have the property manager who cares about the roof. So I think when you create the right strategy, ESG is part of that entire process, which we have to take into account.
Mhm.
Not only like how do you create the right metrics for the reporting, but we're taking it into account. So we usually talk with the ESG person within the company. I know if they're doing grants, if they have internal goals. By the way, some don't have any ESG targets, and it's all going to be a bunch of trade-offs between what they're trying to do, and we take it into account in our strategy. And then we're going to bring together the property managers, the asset managers, the ESG champion, and trying to find the right solution based on everyone's criteria. It does obviously help, whether you do replacement recs, and you can do, again, depends on what they're trying to do, or can own some of it or rev share. There's different models to allow the company to reach their targets, but it really depends what they're trying to do. There's no like one size fits all, I want to say that field.
Yeah. I know you've probably seen a lot of interesting and creative builds in your career, but what is one of the more creative renewable energy applications you've seen in commercial real estate recently?
I think a lot when solar can be so many different things for so many different kind of organizations. I mean, for us specifically, on top of supporting institutional real estate owners, which is the majority of our business, we're also supporting some nonprofits and small organizations to deploy solar. One project I'm really proud of is we did a 600 kilowatt canopy rooftop for the Stone Zoo in Boston. It was an extremely complicated project, combining kind of clean energy and conservation goals. And they have a strong collaboration between private capital. We brought some money from the state. It took a few years, I think, to get this done. But in the end, they got a canopy that was mostly paid by the state, by the taxpayer through the creative structure. They had to bring only a little bit of equity. And now it kind of powers the zoo. I think we got nominated for Project of the Year by PV Magazine or something.
Wow, that's awesome.
We'll wait and see if we get going to win it this year or not. But it's a project which is really cool to see how a nonprofit can like create some creative private public partnership to power things, and it's a really cool project. And now if you go to the Stone Zoo in Boston, you can see those canopies, which is really cool.
Wow. Next time I'm there, I'm going to check that out for sure. We were talking earlier about post, getting these systems built, there's ongoing service and support needed and just making sure these run. And so whether it's solar, battery storage, like you were talking about, a lot of properties now have EV charging, right? That's a big growth state. How should property managers approach like optimizing and monitoring and maintaining their portfolio of renewable energy assets?
Yeah, it's a good question because all these industries it's almost have their own kind of monitoring and softwares. I want to say some try to aggregate them, but usually we work with different vendors. Like the EV or company who put those chargers will be a different company than the storage,
Yep.
the solar. So it is a big challenge also on the O&M side. I can speak mostly on kind of solar and battery, which is what we do right now. We try to encourage companies to have the same kind of monitoring software across everything because
Mhm.
it's easier with reporting. Some create their own, some is off the shelf. I think some is again use companies like yours. But the thing is, again, it's great because why build your own versus using something that exists already and gives you preventive maintenance, which they don't even think about, performance guaranteed. I think again, using kind of experts that have done it before is a good way to do so versus trying it yourself. After you are using the experts for a few years and a few projects, think if it's the right time to build your own. But I wouldn't encourage anyone right off the bat try to kind of create their own software to do monitoring, for example.
Yeah, and I think that's good advice. And some folks will try to rely on the installer for that support structure. And as soon as you start using different installers in different parts of the U.S. and you're getting different types of data presented different, it becomes really difficult, I think, as an asset manager to make all that tell a cohesive story.
I agree. And that's kind of what goes back to the scale aspect. If you're doing scale, you need a kind of a good partner. If you're doing one project, it doesn't matter. Use your installer or whatever.
Yep.
It's not a big problem.
Yep. Is there a regulatory trend that you think will have the biggest impact on commercial solar adoption between now and 5 years from now?
The big wake up call for me in 2025 was how involved we have all to be in regulatory affairs because regulatory has a huge impact on everything solar. You always think kind of the regulators will do their job in an honest way, but regulators have a lot of influence from different stakeholders. What we're watching for now, again, on the federal level, we're still waiting for the FION guidance that will come in soon. The tariffs keep coming in and out, and it's hard to chase them. There's a lot of now potential restrictions. all together on solar panels or inverters. So that stuff we have to watch really, really closely. On the state level, I'm more optimistic. I'm seeing a lot of states increase their community solar caps, more programs, interconnection. They're trying to untie a lot of the clogs that exist in interconnection queues. They will also be very, very critical. But the one thing I would again encourage everyone to be more involved in regulatory affairs. I think sitting down in your chair, we're a small industry and it's a lot of small companies. We're competing against big lobbying money and that have an influence. They have the ear of the regulators, they help them draft things. So I think do try to be active, not only wait for the last minute to make a bunch of calls like we all did in April of this year. Do it all year long. Try to run candidates, speak to regulators, educate them, not just call them when you need them. And I think that will help us grow as an industry.
Wholeheartedly support that. If you sit down with an investor or an asset manager who's got a portfolio, they haven't done anything around renewable energy yet, they've got a 5-year goal to change that. Where do you advise them to start? Like, what's the best advice you can get them going on that journey?
I mean, I'm obviously biased, but I would say if you never did it before, I would really recommend using some kind of an advisor. I mean, speed now is crucial because the ITC is phasing out and we're seeing already talking to prospect and clients. Solar companies will do every trick in the book to try to get them to sign something quickly. But then the risk of doing it wrong or using the wrong equipment or the wrong installer, or choosing the wrong properties to focus on, the cost of mistake is much more costly than maybe rushing it really, really quickly. So a lot of conversation with someone, oh, like this vendor, they can do it quickly. You have safe harbor panels. I'll do it tomorrow. But then, 6 months later, they're calling you, oh, like it disappeared. The price went up. We did a change order. The contract had hidden terms we didn't expect. So, I would recommend kind of take your time, use an expert to kind of help with you before. It can be an overwhelming experience. So again, having someone who did the process before can be really valuable to walk you through the journey. And then if you figure out along the way and you want to do it yourself, that's great too. But at step one, again, there's so many mistakes you can do, even if for very, very, very smart real estate folks.
Save yourself the headache and find someone who's done this before who can help you answer those questions. Wise words. Okay, we're going to go into the lightning round. Your quick answers on these. We compile these into a video of a bunch of CEO experts and their opinions. So, number one, solar, battery storage, geothermal, nuclear, whatever. 5 years from now, what's the most popular renewable energy source in commercial real estate?
I would say solar plus storage.
Yeah.
It's now in the deployment stage. The other ones is all pure bets. I think nuclear has so much time before it will become commercial. It's how faster we can deploy it. And again, it's a no-brainer. I mean,
Yeah.
on-site, 24/7 power that can feed local grids. I mean, what can go wrong? I think it's already proven. It's easily financeable. Banks like it. People, some of them like it, but more will like it when they lower their energy cost. I think you need the storage to make the solar 24/7. You need a solar for the cheap electrons. And I think this combo is great.
Property technology is just a burgeoning sector. There's a ton of players now. Can you name one PropTech solution that you've seen or you've used that's really exceeded your expectations?
I mean, there's a lot of amazing companies and founders doing really incredible things. I mean, we partner with many of them. A lot of them are my good friends. So again, a lot of amazing innovation in that space right now. So really, really, really exciting. I want to say the one technology that kind of float all boats. I mean, it's kind of cliche, but I would still say AI and everything around artificial intelligence and the power of computing. I think it makes every company 20 to 50% better or efficient. And I think while there is, maybe people are afraid of job loss and what it can done, I think the amazing productivity boost that it creates and makes everyone more efficient. I think for us, we're using a lot of AI across what we can do and just makes it a much better company, more efficient. So I think the AI will make all PropTech solutions be better.
And you wake up as an asset manager. What is the first sustainability metric you should be checking each morning in your portfolio?
I think we mentioned this before, but I would say how many roofs are being covered by solar right now?
Yeah.
Every roof is not being covered by solar. It's a missed opportunity.
Yep.
And the US is around 5. I want to say Australia is maybe the highest with 35. So it shows you it can be done. It's not that this thing cannot be done. So if you're not utilizing your roof, it's just free rent you're not collecting.
Yep.
Or just look at how much more solar I can do because it's just free money.
I totally 100% agree. Finish this sentence. The biggest myth about building green in commercial real estate is
They're not really called green. Some green buildings are actually green, but I figure out they're not actually green. I think one of the biggest myths is like sustainability is like costs. Like
Yeah.
a lot of conversation with clients are like, how much would this green thing cost me? I'm like, how much, how about we'll pay you? And I think in reality, efficiency and renewable just reduced operating cost or create money. So green buildings are a trend because they're just better, not because it just costs money or, some targets or other things.
Last one, you've sold SolarKal for a whole bunch of money, and now you're a giant infrastructure investor with a huge portfolio of properties. You're getting ready to make your first sustainable property upgrade. What's the first thing you do?
I mean, and as I said before, I would probably start with solar because within a year, I get all my money back. Then I go with batteries. Within a year, 6 months, I get my money back again. So I can use the same pool of money to do more and more things. And then do energy efficiency, make sure they are building just like reduce light. I think there's so many things you can do that you get the money back so quickly. You can repurpose that money. It's something we kind of work with our clients that have limited budget. I'm like, that's great. We can use that budget over and over and even increase it to do more sustainability initiatives outside of just solar. So if you use that money to do something else. So if I had just money, I would just create a pool that would grow and increase the property value.
Our eyes get a little excited when we think about sitting in that seat, doesn't it? Yaniv, this was an awesome conversation. I've been looking forward to this for a while. Thank you for joining me on the show. Before we finish up, if people want to learn more about you, the work you're doing, about SolarKal, where's the best place for them to go?
I would definitely start with our website, SolarKal with a K.com. We have a lot of blogs, a lot of content. Jigger also posted some stuff on our website. I think we're trying to also be a knowledge base. We're trying to share our best practice about procurement. As much as we are a for-profit company, I think we're part of a mission to expedite the adaptation of solar. To your point about flying over LAX, every time I see another solar system, even if it's not advised by us, I'm happy. I think it's part of the transition. Yeah, we will follow us on LinkedIn. We have so again, we have a lot of presence online as well.
Yeah, I think your marketing team does a wonderful job. I see your guys' stuff everywhere. That blog with Jigger really caught my eye. So well done. I think you're doing the right thing. And again, love that concept of we're all winning when solar's getting deployed, whether it's through us or not. So I agree with you there. And we're arm in arm in that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And again, congrats on all the success of Median. You guys also do great marketing as well. So I'll tell our marketing that you appreciate their work. So that means a lot.
I'm happy to pass that along. Yaniv, thank you again for joining. For my guests listening in, thanks for joining us for another episode of The Future Current. I'll see you next time.